In this session, I'm going to show you how you can set up the desk layout a little bit more to your own liking. So I've touched on this in one of the previous sessions when I made changes to the surface, but we've preset the layer here on layer A based on the band that we typically use. But obviously if you have a band that's changing or you want to do something a bit different and maybe you perhaps want to customize it a little bit, then that's all possible. So I'm going to take you through some of that right now. So having loaded my scene and got the desk basically in the layout from the last time I worked with it, I then decide actually the band I'm working with today is a little bit different and I need to make some customization to that. So what I do is I go into the setup and then I look at this on the left there, it says surface, so I tap on that, and that's now make sure it says strip assign on the top, which it does should by default. Then this is now showing me how I can configure the channels that are on the desk. So we typically use layer A for most things and find that actually the size of the band and the number of channels we use, we can quite easily fit that into there. So what that's showing me here is layer A is selected, so the bottom part of the screen here is showing me the current things that are set out on layer A. So that's keys, vocals 2, 3, 4, guitar and keys. If I slide that across, I can see the DCAs that I've got set up. Slide further, then I've got the handhelds and the lapel mics. So that's currently what's on the desk, and that corresponds to that. Along the top, I've got IP inputs selected. This is showing me all the input channels that are available on the desk that I could use. So again, it starts off with keys, vocals 2, 3, 4, etc. Now, not all those are assigned, but some of them are already assigned. If I slide across, you can see all the input channels that are available. It goes up to the ones that we don't currently assign, but you can pick and choose from any of those on there. So that's the inputs. I've also got access to the FX send and returns and the mixes, so that's the groups. Typically the most useful one might be there, the foldback channels, which are aux 1, 2, 3, 4. If I go on here, I've got also the DCAs. So again, I've got a couple of them pre-assigned, vocals and band and FX. Any of those I can now assign to fader channels on the desk here. So let's make some changes and see how that works. So okay, so I've got my band and I find actually I've only got a couple of vocalists this week, so I don't need 3 and 4. So to save a bit of space, I can take 3 and 4 off. So what I do is I just tap, hold, drag that up, and that removes it from the channel. So those two are now gone. If I now say, well actually just to save a bit of room, let's move the guitar up, the keys up. So that's my band, quite simple this week. So actually what I'd quite like to do is have access to some other things on the desk. I've got plenty of space, so perhaps I'm using the foldback a bit more than normal, so I want to have access to the main foldback levels just so I've got access to that quickly. So what I do is I go to the mix one, I find my 4 foldbacks and say, right, what I'll do is I'll bring those down onto the desk here. So I'm going to just drag those down. That's so. So that gives me access to the 4 main foldback levels for those channels. So that's quite handy. And also what I'm doing is I found that somebody's going to use the PC for a video this morning. Now it's on a soft key, but actually I quite like to have it on a fader. And I've got plenty of space this morning. So what I'll do is I'll go find my PC, find a space on here. Let's move it over the other side. So I just drag that down here, and that gives me my PC volume on a fader, so I've got the mute there, so that's quite handy. Now the foldbacks currently aren't labelled, so I'd like to label those, so while I'm in here I'm going to do that as well. So what I do is I go to processing, select the channel, and as I've done before, but just to cover it again, if I want to change the name, then I just tap on the very top part of that and I'll give it a name. So let's call it foldback 1. Now you've got a 6 character limit, so you've got to be a bit creative sometimes, but at least it gives you the ability to change it. You can also change the colour if you want to at this point, so if I wanted a different colour I could do that. So that's changed that, and I'm just going to tap on another one, foldback 2, change the colour to be the same, and so on. So that means I've now got my foldback channels. I can do that with all 4, and I've got those. So now the things that I'm going to be doing in the service are mostly right in front of me and I've got easy access to them. Now, I will still obviously navigate around using the various selection buttons on the desk as I would normally, but the things I know I'm going to do the most often are right here. So if I want to save that, if I want to keep that because I think actually this is quite a useful setup for me, I can go into scenes, I can either update my standard one that I'm using, or if I'm not sure that I'm going to use it every week, but it's quite handy sometimes, then I can go in and save it as a new scene. So again, I can go into scenes, just give this a name, and save that as a scene. So that's stored. If I then go back and recall the original one, that's still there. If I go back and recall my modified one, that's got my new fader settings on. So quite a useful way to customize the layout. So if you find yourself navigating to different places quite often, and you want to modify what's on the top there, and you can. You've still got multiple layers, so if you decide you can't do everything on layer A, you've got layer B, C, and so on available if you need them. But I find that typically we don't use enough channels to worry about that, but you can change what's on that top layer quite easily. So hopefully you find that useful.